Well, what's up again there, guys? Brian here, the 3 Topics Game here to share with you another one of my worst, best tier list style ranking videos to share with you guys today. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel or don't know me very well, some of you may know that my all-time favorite video game of all time is Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, which I did have a chance to kind of replay for the first time in a number of years on Twitch, and is being, again, joining the long list of games that are being unnecessarily remade just for the sake of making a little bit of money. But it's too late to complain about that because the game is coming, even though I'm not sure if I'll even give it a chance to play. But revisiting my favorite video game of all time allowed me to actually take on all of these bosses, so I just figured, you know what? Now that the experience is semi-fresh in my mind. I did play this maybe a few weeks ago, it feels like, but heck, I would like to do my own personal ranking of just share my initial thoughts on all of the boss fights that are all throughout Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. So that's what we're going to do here today. So if you do happen to enjoy this video by the end, please do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Keep track of me on my future videos. And remember, if you guys have any ideas for future tier list rankings or just standard rankings or top list videos, just discussion videos in general, please let me know in the comments down below, and I will try to get them up as soon as I can. Now, as we take a minute and actually try to go over my own personal ranking of this list, which I actually found it online not too long ago, starting now. Here's how I would rank them in 5 different categories. There are really a total of 9 boss fights in the entire game, and the way I would rank them is going from difficult to challenging to average to what felt like a warm-up to what was a complete waste of my time. So I'll start off with what was a complete waste of my time. In this boss fight, it might surprise some people because this character was built up pretty bigly, but can be taken down like a complete loser in the form of Volgin. Now, Volgin had been pretty much spent the vast majority of the game being the big bad of the entire game. I mean, he was like the main colonel of his own regiment, and he was the one who destroyed, fired a miniature nuclear warhead, and pretty much started the whole purpose of Operation Snake Eater. And the man is just a sadistic sadist who just likes to enjoy causing people punishment and pain. But when you actually take him on for the first time head on, he is an absolute complete pushover. I mean, the whole concept of his fight is that he can use his electrical powers to actually track on your movements if you have a gun attached. So here's how you take him down. You can either just use CQC and throw his ass to the ground and then shoot him with a shotgun, or just disarm the shotgun, run around behind him, shoot him 2 or 3 times in the back with a shotgun. I think it's like 3 or 4 times, and he goes down. This was very, very disappointing. But heck, there have been a long history of villains who have spent the vast majority of the game being built up, only for the final battle with them actually not really living up to the hype. And Volgin is the classic case of that, which is why, without question, he felt like a complete waste of my time. Now, as we go on to the next rank, which these are boss fights that I think feel more like a warm-up, I'm going to have to go with The Pain. I like the setting of this fight, how it's kind of done like in a semi-underground, like semi-cavern, where there's 2 platforms, one where he stands and then one where you'll typically stand. And his whole premise is that he can summon all these hornets, and he can either shoot them at you or he can have them cover you and attack you. And so the primary way that this fight works is that you'll more than likely have to just jump in the water, go underwater until the hornets back off. You climb back on the platform, or if you have the right gun, you can just stay in the water and then shoot the paint from a distance. The reason I feel like he's a warm-up is just that the overall concept of the fight itself is very repetitive, because there are multiple ways that you can beat him, but the traditional way is that you simply will just keep your distance and just shoot him from a distance in the water, or if you choose to climb up and shoot him and then just jump back into the water, and you rinse and repeat, and that's really about it. And I typically like my boss fights to have just a little more creativity or just a little bit more to them for me to have a good time with the boss fight. Now, don't get me wrong, I like the setting, but the actual execution of this boss fight, given the fact that the Pain has like the ability to summon these massive swarms of hornets, was just a little bit disappointing. But again, I did really like the setting and just how it was built up. But again, in execution, it really wasn't all that much, which is why I would consider him more of a warm-up. Let's see, who else? Is there anyone I would consider a warm-up? Actually, I think that's about it. As we go into average, this one's going to be a little bit confusing because it's not so much the execution of the boss fight itself, but it's how it was created, or it's simply based off of needing to know your own knowledge. That's why I would have to add the sorrow as average. Now, you don't actually directly fight the Sorrow. The Sorrow's whole premise is that while Snake is underwater after being, after underwater, he kind of goes into like this little limbo land, and pretty much it has Snake just walking down this one path, and it'll actually show you all the people that you killed if you did kill anyone on this pathway, including the members of the Cobra units that you have beaten up to that point, which by that point you will have beaten all but one. Now, the reason I put this as average is it's pretty much based on the fact that you kind of have to know how to get out of the boss fight. Now, there's a revival pill that you are given that if you forget to not use it, you won't revive. And this is something that I was not aware of the first time I played this game, is that I had to use the revival pill. So while in execution it may not be all that impressive, but it's kind of, you need to know everything that you're equipped with. And sometimes in the middle of a game you might forget that you have all these resources and it's just needing to know things. So that's why I would put the Sorrow fight as a bit average. Next on the average list, I'm going to go with Ocelot. Now, Ocelot is an iconic character of the franchise. He obviously will go on to become Revolver Ocelot. I absolutely love the setting, how it has Snake and Ocelot on like two different sides of this crevice, and he pretty much wants to take you on in a one-on-one duel. Now, the reason why I would say it's a bit average is that there's an extra element in the fact that you have a number of goons, I believe at least 3, on your side of the crevice that will actually shoot at you if they see that you're starting to cause some damage to Ocelot. So you have to kind of worry about two different elements. You have to worry about Ocelot, who's moving from location to location on his side, trying to shoot at you with his 2 revolvers, while you have to deal with these 3 guys in the back shooting at you. And if I recall, if you actually start shooting at them, I think they'll just keep on coming. And so there's multiple different elements to this really wonderful setting. But I do think it is about average, but it's still a great fight in my opinion. As we continue on to the average, I am actually going to go with the Shagohod. I think the Shagohod is a much better version of Volgin's fight because he actually can ride the Shagohod and control it with his powers. And the whole premise is that Eva, and Snake kind of separate. Eva is going to distract Volgin on the Shagohod with her bike while you kind of take shots of him at a distance. Now, he does have this protective shield around him if you try to shoot him directly, which is why you have to use RPGs to damage the kind of the turbine wheels to kind of stop the Shagohod from moving and then take shots at Volgin. So the fact that there's multiple steps and multiple elements kind of makes it a little bit average. The reason I wouldn't put it a little bit higher is because the AI for Volgin, even on the hardest difficulty, isn't too intelligent. You would think that he would focus more on Snake, but the fact that he's chasing Eva around just always felt a little bit off to me. But again, I think that's the point as why that we have Eva as part of this fight, because I think if Eva wasn't a part of this fight, it would be a much, much harder fight. I think if Eva wasn't there, the Eva factor wasn't there, I probably would easily put this in a challenging boss fight. But I do think that this is the best among the average boss fights. Now, as we go into the challenging settings, the first one that I'm actually going to place in there is the Fury. Now, the Fury is the second to last member of the Cobra unit that you actually have to take on. And it takes place in this kind of underground facility underneath Groznygrad. And the reason why I put him as challenging is simply because he uses the element of fire and he can fly around, he can cause a lot of damage. During my recent replay, I do believe he actually was successful in killing me at least twice. And that was when I knew kind of what to do. And even when I was equipped with all these weapons, he was still really, really difficult to deal with. So that's why for me, the Fury was always a little bit of a challenge. Not so much that I can't handle him, but like if I don't do this the right way, I'm going to have a very, very bad day, and Snake is definitely going to take quite a lot of damage, which he did during my last playthrough, which is why I would put the Fury in challenging. The next on that list, I'm going to have to go with the boss, or aka the Joy. I would put her above the Fury. This is the last boss fight in the entire game, and it's really the culmination of you needing to use everything that you had learned as a character in order to defeat your former master. So this is a master versus student fight set in an open white meadow of white flowers, and because the boss is wearing a white suit, it allows her to blend in a little bit more. Awesome fight. During my last playthrough, I was having a really difficult time. It doesn't have to be hard. There are kind of cheap, easy ways to get around the boss, but I just think that the overall build-up and its meaning is very, very significant. And the boss is easily one of my all-time favorite characters in the entire Metal Gear Solid franchise, which is why I would easily place her in the challenging tier. However, there is two people that I would put above her, and sticking with the challenging department, I would absolutely have to place the fear above the boss. Now, here's the thing about the fear. The reason why the fear is so challenging is because he is quite literally the only boss that, in order for me to even feel comfortable taking this guy on, I need one piece of equipment, and that is the thermal goggles. The thermal goggles are absolutely key. In fact, they are so key that during my last playthrough of the game, I had forgotten to pick them up earlier on, and when I got to a point where I knew I couldn't get them back, I just started an entire brand new game just to make sure I got the thermal goggles, because not only are the thermal goggles key for this particular boss fight, they're actually quite helpful in later sections of the game. The fear is the ability to camouflage himself. He likes to jump around in the trees, and the setting of the fight itself is placed in this kind of semi-open forest area where there's all kinds of traps, claymores, death traps that you can fall into. So there's a lot of elements about this fight that you need to be worried about while the fear is constantly jumping around and camouflaging. And if you don't have the thermal goggles to keep track of this guy, you're going to have a really, really bad day. And he is by far just one of the hardest fights that I've ever had to contend with. And that's why he's by far the top tier in the challenging department. However, there's only one member of the Cobra unit that is really, really, really difficult. So much so that I've only ever been, like, in my entire life, I've only decided to take him on head on, straight up, once. And that is the old man and the father of modern sniping, the End. Now, as I stated earlier, in the entire period of my life, I've only ever been able to beat the End straight up once. Just because this particular fight is a sniper battle, and it is set in two big open areas where you kind of have to try to find where he is. And he typically is always able to beat me. Now, the first time I beat him was kind of by accident. It was when I was back in high school, and I was so frustrated because the End kept beating me that I stopped playing the game for like 3 days. And then when I came back, well, as some of you may know, if you actually don't beat the End in a certain amount of time, he literally just drops dead of old age. And I didn't know that at the time. Now, another thing that I discovered later on during multiple future playthroughs was that there's actually an opportunity to kill the End earlier on in the game than you actually encounter him. And this takes place literally right after you kill the Pain, and in the after the cutscene where pretty much Sokolov has an encounter with Volgin. There's a section where you actually see a bunch of guards pushing the End into the base, and you actually have maybe 30 seconds, and if you have a sniper rifle, you can actually take shots at the End and kill him before his official fight. And if you do that, then you just have to take out a couple of just random guards in these two open areas. And that is how I've been able to take out the End every single time. I don't use the old age technique. I have given up on trying to beat him straight up because I've only been able to do it once. So I feel like this is the only boss fight that is so difficult that I just have to take him out the cheap way because I don't want to do it the long way, which is why, without question, he is the most difficult boss fight, at least for me, in Metal Gear Solid 3. I'm sure there's easy ways to do it, but that just for me personally, he's always been a pain. So that is my tier list ranking of all of the boss fights in Metal Gear Solid 3. Now, if you did happen to enjoy this game as much as I did and play through these bosses, how would you rank them? Share your ranking with me and everyone else in the comments down below. And like always, thank you guys for watching. You're awesome, and I'll see you guys next time.